Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are taking a deep breath and wading into some of the most complex, high-stakes material we've ever tackled.
We really are.
We're doing an analysis of sources with some very specific, very detailed claims related to the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
And these sources, they allege everything. We're talking institutional cover-ups, coordinated narrative control.
All the way to these deeply bizarre aviation anomalies involving, of all things, foreign military aircraft.
And then there's the money. Highly suspicious organizational finances within his former organization.
So our mission today is, I think, paramount, and it's critical for you to remember our role here. We are just impartial guides.
That's right. We're navigating some really complex information. We are not here to validate or, disprove any of these high-stakes claims.
Our job is just to pull out the precise knowledge nuggets, the verifiable details, the specific numbers, and the core hypotheses that these sources are presenting.
And you have to understand, when you have an event this complex, this politically charged, the immediate environment is it's information overload.
And the sources themselves are acutely aware of that. I mean, they frame the entire response right after the event as a deliberate psychological warfare campaign.
Yeah, they argue the goal is to make inquiry itself impossible.
It's fascinating, the historical parallel they draw.
With that?
They draw a direct line back to 1963 to the claims around the JFK assassination.
Oh, okay.
Suggesting that just as Operation Mockingbird was allegedly set up to control the media narrative back then, the CIA influencing domestic media.
You're saying the same playbook is running today.
Exactly. The core allegation is that this campaign is deployed not just for suppression, but specifically to, and I'm quoting here, criminalize asking questions.
And it's an emotional play, too. They say the goal is sowing discord and confusion, and they even use this analogy of Satan as the great accuser.
It's an assertion that the narrative itself is built to emotionally disarm anyone looking into it.
And they don't just make that claim in a vacuum. They cite very specific examples. They point to figures who were allegedly used to discourage any kind of investigation, like Pastor Rob McCoy.
McCoy, right. The sources claim he quoted from the Bible, Romans 12.15:16, weep with those who weep.
And argued that looking for clicks or trying to, build an empire by digging into the death was somehow
unbiblical or even evil.
So the sources see this as a way to reframe legitimate inquiry as a kind of moral failing, that the only right response is to just be silent and mourn.
Which, of course, stops any investigation before it can even get started.
And then there's the whole situation with Steven Crowder, which the sources highlight as like a key piece of this psychological playbook.
This is where they claim a narrative was totally manufactured, like a pre-bunking.
What was it exactly?
That the investigator accused Charlie's wife, Erica Kirk, of murder.
Which is a huge deal, but the sources make a crucial distinction here.
They do. The investigator had only said publicly that Charlie was betrayed by everyone.
But she clarified that, didn't she?
Yes. She said it was aimed at people at Turning Point USA, not his family.
So the sources claim this manufactured accusation about the wife was like a strategic talking point designed to create immediate panic in the community.
And divert attention away from any potential issues at TPUSA and, point it right at the grieving family.
If you look at this through the lens of the sources, it raises a really important question.
Which is?
Why? Why such an aggressive, over-the-top, totally manufactured reaction?
The sources suggest that coordinated attack, especially that specific lie about the wife, is actually a massive clue.
Right. They hypothesize that the lie itself, quote, foreshadows something that they don't want you to know. In their view, that panic response reveals just how deep the institutional concern really was.
Okay, let's unpack this core aviation mystery, because this is where the source material gets. Well, it goes from psychological tactics to some really dense, verifiable data.
Yeah, the initial investigation found these two Egyptian military aircraft. There was a blue one designated SUBND and a yellow one, SUBTT.
And the sources note the immediate pushback from critics as soon as this detail came out.
Of course. Critics jumped on it, right? Claiming a simple time zone error was enough to officially debunk the entire story.
Arguing the planes just couldn't have been where the investigator claimed they were.
Which, speaks to the speed of that whole narrative control machine. A quick debunking attempt based on really superficial data.
But here's where it gets really interesting, because the investigation obviously didn't stop there.
No.
The sources present this further research that makes a genuinely astonishing and very specific claim.
And this is the real bombshell.
That these military planes were primarily tracking Erica Kirk, not Charlie.
Yeah.
And had allegedly been doing it for years, between 2022 and September of 2025.
That completely changes the scope of this. We're not talking about a one-off event. This is a long-term surveillance claim with foreign military assets.
And they documented over 68 overlaps. Later, they updated that to 73 between the plane's movements and Erica's known locations.
Including overseas travel.
And crucially, the geographic cluster of these flights. It wasn't random. It was highly concentrated in just 5 states: Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Delaware, and Utah.
I mean, that's the definition of a pattern.
And this is where the sources lean into statistics to build their case. They stress the statistical weight of it.
Right. They claim the probability of these specific Egyptian planes just happening to land around Erica's locations
Based on random models.
is less than 0.000000001%. They present that as basically mathematical proof that the tracking was deliberate and coordinated. It's a key part of their argument.
So if we accept the source's premise for a moment that this tracking was deliberate, then the next anomaly is crucial.
The diversion.
The diversion. Why did Charlie Kirk fly into Salt Lake City, SLC, on the day of the event instead of Provo Airport, PVU, which is way closer to where he was going?
The source material suggests this was intentional.
And the logic they present is pretty compelling.
Yeah.
Normally, people travel to Charlie for interviews, not the other way around.
Yeah, the sources note he wouldn't typically go that far out of his way for an interview with someone like Andrew K. Smith, a restaurant fund director. Unless it was a cover for meeting, like a massive donor or some major political figure. It was an anomaly in his normal travel patterns.
And the hypothesis connecting this alleged diversion back to the planes is tied to Charlie's own specific skills.
They say he was obsessed with planes.
Obsessed with planes, had a photographic memory, and was known as a walking Excel sheet for data, names, and numbers.
Which is just incredibly tragic and ironic if their claim is correct.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
The theory they present is that if he had landed in Provo, he would have instantly recognized that rare blue Egyptian military craft, SUBND, which was right there on the tarmac.
So that specific talent he had, that photographic memory,
would have let him immediately realize something was amiss, forcing the alleged diversion to SLC just to keep him unaware of that foreign presence on the ground in Provo.
Okay, let's shift to the specific timeline of that day, the day of the assassination, and look at the physical evidence the sources present.
There are some incredibly specific anomalies about that blue plane, SUBND. It was stationary at Duncan Aviation FBO. That's a fixed base operator, like a private terminal in Provo.
And that stationary status is critical. The tracking data shows that even though the plane wasn't moving, its transponder was on.
It was transponding data.
Right. And it was doing this during 2 very specific windows, both related to the assassination.
The first window was from 9:05 a.m. to 10:34 a.m. Utah time. But it's the second window that really raises eyebrows.
It turned back on 17 minutes after Charlie was shot.
Operating from 12:40 p.m. to 1:29 p.m.
Now, when a military jet sits on a tarmac with its transponder active like that, the sources outline a couple of possibilities.
One is just routine maintenance checks.
Boring answer. But the more concerning one they raise is that the military jet was being used for encrypted, untraceable satellite-based communications.
Something that would be safe from everyone except, highly sophisticated agencies like the NSA.
Exactly. And that context gives the timing of that second window, 17 minutes after the assassination, a really significant implication in their narrative. Was it a check-in? A final signal? We don't know.
And if you look at other oddities from that day, September 10th, the sources highlight the unusual presence of Terrell Farnsworth.
The company's head of media?
Right. Farnsworth usually only handles massive events like the Student Action Summit. But he was apparently at this college campus event specifically to secure the SD cards.
He claimed they were just trying something new that day, according to the source material.
But they note he wasn't at the next event. So the implication is that the real mission was just securing the physical evidence, the video footage, immediately.
The sources also revealed they've requested more info on a new flight of interest, a private jet, N560TW.
This one came from Scottsdale, Arizona, landed in Provo at 10:06 a.m. just before the assassination, and then immediately took off for Santa Barbara.
It just suggests a potential operational link. maybe a transport element moving in and out of the site very quickly.
But for tangible physical evidence,
Mhm.
the most specific details cited involve rental cars.
Yes. The sources claim that Duncan Aviation, the same FBO hosting the planes, sourced rental cars for the alleged Egyptians days before the operation.
And they provided incredible detail here. This is where it gets very, very specific and verifiable.
We're talking license plate numbers, make, model, the whole thing.
Okay, we have a silver 2025 Toyota RV4, Utah plate T092Zs.
A white 2025 Toyota Camry, Arizona plate, CWN N872.
A white 2023 Toyota RV4, Utah plate TN12KOM.
And a black 2025 Toyota 4Runner, Utah plate Z923DA.
That level of detail, if it's verifiable, that's significant. It moves the claim from just abstract tracking data to concrete logistical support on the ground.
It absolutely connects the dots. The
Yeah.
sources are alleging there was an aviation presence, communications happening in these critical windows, and then dedicated ground support vehicles procured locally days in advance.
Okay, let's transition now to the financial context, because the sources tie all these operational questions directly back to some serious internal red flags about Turning Point USA's finances.
And we learned that Charlie Kirk himself allegedly had deep concerns, serious enough that he wanted a new audit just 7 days before his death.
This potential financial motivation gives a why to all the operational claims.
And the most glaring financial anomaly that the sources cite is that TPUSA missed the extended tax deadline of October 15th for filing their IRS Form 990s.
For those who don't know, the Form 990 is the standard disclosure document nonprofits have to file every year. It makes their operations and finances public.
So for a major political nonprofit to miss that deadline, even the extended one, that is a huge administrative red flag.
And the problem is, it's compounded. While the 990 for the main TPUSA entity is posted, the sources found the forms were critically missing for 3 related entities.
Turning Point Endowment, Turning Point Action, and America's Turning Point.
So when you have these interlocking entities and some of the filings are missing, you can't see the whole financial picture.
And that concealment, it leads directly to this question of the missing. What was it, $8.6 million?
Yeah, $8,560,625. The available TPUSA 990 form shows that money was sent to America's Turning Point, which the sources just label a shell company.
And since that entity's tax filing is missing, the trail goes completely cold. There is no public record of how that huge sum of money was actually spent.
And the history here makes it look highly suspect, at least in the source's narrative.
The prior year filings for America's Turning Point showed millions in salaries and wages, despite reporting, get this, 0 employees.
0 employees. That's a major accounting paradox.
It raises immediate red flags. Where was that money actually going? The sources suggest fake people on the payroll or funds just being routed in untraceable ways.
And on top of that, the main 501c3 organization reduced its staff by 1/3, but their overall salary costs still went up.
It just creates this narrative of complete financial opacity.
And finally, there's the detail about the endowment fund.
Right. The sources claim TPUSA regularly routed millions in donor dollars to their own endowment fund, which had $61 million in assets as of 2023 to invest in the stock market.
And the source material specifically labels this practice unethical, questioning whether donors really intended their money for political activism or for speculative investment.
So this alleged financial turmoil, it really sets the stage for the final set of questions about institutional silence and threats.
The investigator recounts this encounter with the Turning Point spokesperson, Andrew Kovat, at the hospital.
At the hospital?
And Kovat allegedly told her that she and Tucker Carlson were both on a credible threat list and that they should lay low.
That is a remarkable thing to say to an investigator, but the paradox is, the investigator called Tucker Carlson, and neither one of them were ever contacted directly by any federal agency about these so-called threats.
Which leads the sources to ask the critical question, who exactly do those threats come from?
And material suggests the threats might be coming from specific groups tied to Israel, citing aggressive rhetoric and, coordinated attempts to cancel both the investigator and Carlson.
The overarching theme, though, and this links all the way back to that initial psychological warfare campaign, is this question of betrayal and silence.
Why did Turning Point USA leadership stay silent and even let the investigator be professionally attacked when they allegedly recognized the Egyptian planes or knew about all the financial issues?
The sources characterize this total institutional silence as a lie by severe omission.
So let's try to synthesize the 3 major pillars of inquiry that the sources present for you.
Okay. First, they present a case for coordinated narrative suppression. That includes specific alleged attempts at pre-bunking lies.
Second, they present these verifiable anomalies about the Egyptian military aircraft, the long-term statistical tracking of Erica Kirk.
And third, they present a highly suspicious pattern of financial irregularities, missing tax filings for key entities, and that massive untracked $8.6 million transfer at TPUSA.
All happening just as Charlie was allegedly pushing for a new audit.
If we connect all these disparate pieces to, what actually happened next, the material establishes that Erica Kirk took over as CEO of Turning Point USA just 8 days after the assassination.
Which means she is now the official head responsible for answering these highly detailed organizational and financial questions.
Especially about those missing funds and the no employee salary expenses in the related entities.
It's a profound and interlocking set of claims presented here. The sources allege that politics is fickle and that Charlie was ultimately betrayed.
And given that claim that Charlie had a walking Excel sheet, photographic memory, and was allegedly getting clued into something about finances just days before he died, we'll leave you with this final provocative thought.
What specific, verifiable financial discovery could he have made? Something only a walking Excel sheet could spot that prompted that alleged diversion to Salt Lake City and the dramatic events that followed.
Something for you to consider as you process this information.